Great Smoky Mountains breathe. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Rangers who have worked these ridges for decades will tell you off the record that the mountains actually seem to inhale and exhale, that the mist moves with intention, that the silence in certain valleys isn't empty, it's full of something that watches. 20 million visitors come here every year, making it the most visited national park in America. They hike the maintained trails, they photograph the waterfalls, they camp in designated areas and leave thinking they've experienced the Smokies. They haven't, because there are places in these mountains that don't appear on any tourist map. Places surrounded by fences that weren't there last year. Places where the Park Service has installed equipment that has nothing to do with wildlife monitoring or fire prevention. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this, you'll never see America's favorite national park the same way again. The first zone is known internally as Sector 7 Alpha, though you won't find that designation on any public document. It occupies approximately 4,000 acres in the southeastern quadrant of the park, an area that was officially closed in 1987, following what incident reports describe only as multiple visitor incidents requiring emergency extraction. The nature of these incidents has never been disclosed. What makes Sector 7 Alpha unusual isn't the closure itself. It's what rangers report experiencing along its perimeter. A retired park ranger who worked the Smokies for 31 years agreed to speak anonymously about what he witnessed during routine patrols near the restricted boundary. "There's a line," he said. "You can feel it before you see it. The temperature drops by at least 10 degrees. Your radio starts crackling with something that sounds almost like voices, but not quite, and the birds go completely silent." He paused before continuing. "I've seen deer run straight toward that line and then stop dead, like they hit an invisible wall. They don't cross. Nothing crosses. Nothing that wants to survive, anyway." Documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests reveal that the Park Service has installed seismographic monitoring equipment along the Sector 7 Alpha boundary, the type typically used to detect underground movement or structural instability. But when researchers asked what geological concerns justified such monitoring in an area with no known fault lines, their inquiries went unanswered. Here's the thing. Whatever is being monitored in Sector 7 Alpha isn't geological. At least, not in any conventional sense. The second restricted zone lies beneath the surface of Fontana Lake, in an area that was once the town of Proctor, North Carolina. When the lake was created in 1944 to power the Fontana Dam, several communities were flooded and their residents relocated. Proctor was supposed to be one of them, but according to historical records that have since been partially redacted, not everyone left. Divers who explored the submerged town in the 1970s reported finding structures that didn't match the original town plans. Buildings that were never documented. Passages that led into the mountainside itself. And inside one partially collapsed structure, they found chairs arranged in a circle around a stone pedestal that held something they refused to describe. The dive team's leader, a former Navy SEAL who had completed hundreds of underwater operations, emerged from that final dive pale and shaking. He recommended immediate cessation of all exploration activities. Within a week, the entire area was declared off-limits due to hazardous structural conditions. No structural assessment was ever conducted. Today, boats are prohibited from anchoring anywhere within 500 meters of the original Proctor site. Rangers patrolled the restriction zone, but don't explain why. And on certain nights, according to fishermen who have ventured too close, you can still hear church bells ringing from somewhere beneath the water. Could it be that some places hold on to the past more tightly than they should? The third zone doesn't have an official name because, officially, it doesn't exist. It occupies a narrow valley between Clingman's Dome and Mount Collins, accessible only by trails that appear on older maps but have been systematically removed from all editions published after 2003. Hikers who have stumbled into this area report consistent phenomena. Compasses that spin continuously, GPS devices that show coordinates hundreds of miles away, and a sound that everyone describes the same way. A low hum, a vibration you feel in your chest before you hear it in your ears. One hiker who entered the valley in 2018 filmed his experience on his phone. The footage, portions of which circulated online before being removed for terms of service violations, shows approximately 17 minutes of normal forest terrain. Then, at the 18-minute mark, the image begins to distort. Colors shift, shapes elongate, and for exactly 3 seconds, something appears between the trees, something tall, something that shouldn't have been there. When the hiker tried to export the full video, the file corrupted. When he submitted a copy to the Park Service asking for explanation, he received a letter thanking him for his concern and informing him that the area he had filmed was not part of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The coordinates from his GPS, however, place him squarely within park boundaries. The fourth restricted zone is perhaps the most disturbing because it's the most recent. In August 2022, a section of the Appalachian Trail near Newfound Gap was abruptly closed for what the Park Service described as trail maintenance. The closure has never been lifted. Barriers now block access from both directions, manned by rangers who have been instructed not to answer questions about when the trail might reopen. What prompted this closure wasn't maintenance. It was an incident involving a group of thru hikers who set up camp approximately 2 miles north of the current barrier. According to one survivor who later posted her account online before her social media accounts were terminated, the group of 5 woke at approximately 3 a.m. to find themselves surrounded by lights. Not flashlights, not headlamps. Spherical luminescence that moved with apparent intelligence, circling the campsite in patterns that seemed deliberate. One member of the group, a 34-year-old engineer from Virginia, walked toward the lights despite his companion's protests. He crossed the perimeter of their camp and kept walking. The lights followed him. His 4 companions watched him disappear into the forest. They heard his footsteps for another 30 seconds, then silence. Search and rescue teams spent 11 days combing the area. They found his tent. They found his pack. They found his shoes, arranged neatly beside the trail, as if he had simply decided to walk barefoot into the wilderness. They never found him. The investigation report, obtained through FOIA request, contains a notation that has never been explained. Subject recovery, suspended pending protocol review. Area to be secured indefinitely. What protocol? Secured from what? The Park Service has declined to comment. Here's the problem. The incidents keep accumulating, and the restricted zones keep expanding. The 5th zone encompasses an area near Cades Cove that locals have called the quiet place for generations. According to Cherokee oral traditions, this valley was considered sacred and dangerous long before European settlers arrived. Medicine men warned that certain spirits dwelled there. Spirits that didn't like to be disturbed. Modern rangers report phenomena that align disturbingly well with these ancient warnings. Equipment failures occur with statistical improbability in and around the quiet place. Radios malfunction, cameras capture nothing but static, and rangers who have ventured into the restricted area report hearing their own voices calling to them from deeper in the forest. Not echoes. Responses, their own voices answering questions they hadn't asked yet. One ranger who experienced this phenomenon in 2019 requested immediate transfer out of the park. In his exit interview, portions of which were leaked to journalists investigating park anomalies, he described the experience as like talking to something that was wearing my voice like a costume. He has since refused all further discussion of his time in the Smokies. The 6th restricted zone was created following an incident in 2015 that the Park Service has never publicly acknowledged. Near the boundary between Tennessee and North Carolina, a survey team conducting routine mapping operations discovered a cave entrance that didn't appear on any geological survey. The entrance measured approximately 8 meters wide and showed signs of recent disturbance, as if something large had passed through. The team entered the cave with proper equipment and authorization. Their last radio transmission, logged at 2:47 p.m., reported extensive chamber system, unusual acoustic properties, possible artificial modifications to walls. They requested backup and additional lighting. The request was acknowledged. Backup was dispatched. When the support team arrived 40 minutes later, the cave entrance was gone. Not collapsed, not obscured. Gone. Where the 8-meter opening had been, there was only solid rock face, weathered and covered with moss that appeared to have been growing for decades. The original survey team was never found. Their equipment was never recovered. And the area has been restricted ever since, patrolled by rangers who have been told only that the zone is geologically unstable and that entering it would be inadvisable. But here's what makes this case different from the others. 3 weeks after the team's disappearance, hikers on a trail 7 miles away reported hearing voices calling for help from inside the mountain. The voices identified themselves by name. The names matched the missing survey team members. When rangers investigated, they found nothing. No cave, no sound, no explanation. The 7th and final restricted zone is the one that disturbs rangers the most, because unlike the others, they don't know exactly where it is. It moves. Reports dating back to the 1960s describe an area of approximately 200 acres where reality seems to behave differently. Trees grow in impossible directions, shadows fall the wrong way, and people who enter sometimes emerge in locations they couldn't have reached by walking, hours or days after they should have. Rangers call it the drifter, and they've learned, through decades of accumulated experience, to watch for its signs. A particular quality of light. A specific pattern in the mist. A feeling that the forest is paying attention. When the drift appears, protocol is clear. Evacuate all personnel from the affected area immediately. Do not investigate. Do not photograph. Do not engage. Wait for it to pass. Document the location and duration, and file the report under a classification that ensures it will never be publicly released. One ranger, who broke protocol in 1998, attempted to photograph the phenomenon. His camera, a professional-grade film SLR, captured 17 exposures before the drift dissipated. When the film was developed, 16 frames showed normal forest scenery. The 17th showed something else, something that prompted the immediate classification of the entire roll. That ranger was offered early retirement with full benefits contingent on his signing a confidentiality agreement. He accepted. What was in that photograph has never been disclosed, but colleagues who glimpsed it before classification describe his reaction. He sat down, put his head in his hands, and whispered, "It's been here longer than we have. It's been here since before anything. If you've made it this far, thank you." 7 zones, 7 warnings carved into the mountains themselves. The Great Smoky Mountains are beautiful. They're ancient. They're sacred to the people who first walked these ridges, and they hold secrets that someone has decided we're not ready to know. Leave a like if any of these stories resonated with you. Tell us which zone disturbed you most and which one we should investigate next. Subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the places that maps refuse to show. But remember, some trails aren't closed for maintenance. Some trails are closed because what walks them isn't human. And some mountains don't just remember. They watch, they wait. And sometimes, when the mist is right and the silence is deep enough, they reach out and take what they want.